The storm and winds may...
Hi, I'm Terry Townsend, minister here at the New Concord Church of Christ in New Concord, Ohio. I want to personally thank you for joining us today via this live stream. The purpose of this stream is to simply share the good news of Jesus Christ. While we appreciate you viewing this stream, this effort is in no way intended to be a substitute for the assembling together with the saints. We recognize, however, that there are circumstances that arise that might prevent someone from attending church service. And for this reason, we provide a means whereby people like you can hear the gospel preached. We hope you enjoy today's message from God's Word. Please feel free to share this stream. If you're ever in the New Concord, Ohio area, we'd love for you to drop by and visit with us. We meet every Sunday morning beginning at 9:15 a.m. for Bible class, again at 10 a.m. for worship, and again 6 p.m. for our evening worship. See you soon.
You hold me in your mighty arms, forever safe from harm.
Good evening. So I want to start today with one of it might be my favorite psalm of all of the passages from the Old Testament, really from the passage of the Bible. It's my favorite psalm. It's one that has meant the most to me. It's the one that I have cherished through my life. Whenever I get a chance to just share some thoughts with people, this is one, because it has meant so much to me, it's the first one that I run to, and it's the one that I want to share with you tonight. Psalm 27. It's so meaningful because it has so many different ways that it can be applicable. My Bible summarizes it by saying Psalm 27 is an exuberant declaration of faith. But you can read this as a psalm that is about overcoming fear. You can read this as a psalm about the Lord's guiding and His presence. You can read it, about He being a conquering the conquering army that conquers enemies. You can read it in all different ways, a psalm of worship or a psalm of guidance. But it's just, I choose to look at it in the way that my Bible has titled it. And that is just this exuberant declaration of faith. Because it is very simply just David, in my mind, saying, expressing to God, this is what God is to him. This is what God has done for him. This is how He has been his protector and how He has been His stronghold. And so seems like one that is very personal to David. And by the way, it's been very personal to me. And so I want to hear and I want to share with you some of my thoughts about David looking back and saying, this is what God has been to me. And I want to share with you, this is what this psalm has been to me. And to share what David might have some things we might learn from David. So let's read. We may read the whole psalm to begin with, and then we're going to go back and pull some things out. Let's start in Psalm 27, and we'll just start in the first verse, and let's read together. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked came against me to eat up my flesh, my enemies and foes, they stumbled and they fell. And though an army may encamp against me, my heart will not fear. And though war may rise against me, in this I will be confident. One thing I've asked of the Lord, and that will I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in His temple. For in the time of trouble He will hide me in His pavilion. In the secret place of His tabernacle He will hide me, and He'll set me high upon a rock. And now my head shall be lifted up above my enemies all around me. Therefore I'll offer sacrifices of joy in His tabernacle. I'll sing, yes, I will sing praises to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy also upon me and answer me. When you said, seek my face, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, I will seek. Don't hide your face from me. Don't turn your servant away in anger, but you've been my help. Don't leave me nor forsake me, O God of my salvation. When my father and my mother forsake me, then the Lord will take care of me. Teach me your way, O Lord. Lead me in a smooth path because of my enemies. Do not deliver me to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and such as breathe out violence. I would have lost heart unless I had believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and He will strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. Psalm 27, beautiful, beautiful. I just have three things maybe that we can share together and things that you can divide the psalm up into three ways and think about. I think number one, what David expresses is thanksgiving for the Lord's protection. The Lord's protection in verses 1 through 3, right? Listen to what he says. He is my light. He is my salvation. And he has to be able to say, because of what the Lord has been to him, he's able to say, whom shall I fear? Who am I going to be afraid of? He is the one who brings light to the situation. He's the one who offers confidence and deliverance. And so David's able to say, who am I going to be afraid of if I have the Lord's protection? If you think about it, who better to describe God as being his protector from enemies or from deliverance in battle? Who better than somebody like David? It's one thing for me to be able to say, oh yeah, the Lord has protected me through my life. And that might mean something to you because we might know one another and you may know what I've been through. But think back to all the times that David finds protection in the Lord. From the time he is young, when we can read the stories about the lion and the bear, or to think about as he goes forward to Goliath and the Philistines, and all through his experiences with King Saul. You can think about even some of his later years when he deals with some of the giants again and almost loses his life a few times. For us to stand and say, the Lord has been my protection is one thing, but for David to say, he is my light, he is my salvation, he is the strength of my life. Of whom will I be afraid? Who shall I be afraid of? It doesn't matter what enemies there are, because the Lord is my stronghold, and I will take shelter in him. And so, number one, we can read about the Lord's protection. Number two, I want you to think about in verses 4 through 8, the Lord's presence. The Lord's presence. If we had to ask you, and you might say, if you could ask God for one thing, what would it be? You might seek after health, or you might seek after peace, or you might seek after relationships or love. You might seek, as Solomon did, some wisdom, and they might all be good requests. I find it really interesting what David asks for when he says, I want one thing. And it's so powerful when, very simple, one thing, verse 4, I have asked of the Lord and desired of the Lord, and that I will seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, and to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. What does David want? He wants to be in the presence of the Lord, doesn't he? It's very simple. It's moving that he picks that one thing. And I think the most important word in this situation is to dwell. Where do you dwell, right? Don't you dwell at home, right? Think about that thought. David doesn't want to, he wants to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life. And I think it's important to meditate on that, because David doesn't want to just go make a visit to God from time to time. He doesn't want to sit on the porch and have coffee. He doesn't want to, just on occasion when he's in need, seek the Lord's guidance. He doesn't want any of those things. No, he said, I want one thing, and what I want to do is dwell in the presence of the Lord in his house. Where is it that you dwell? Think about that. That word's an interesting word. We don't use that a lot today, maybe in our language. Where do you dwell? Don't you dwell in your home? Don't you dwell where you live, right? When I was in preaching school way back a long time ago, one of our duties on Sundays was to travel around and preach to other congregations here and there, and we would travel all through the state of West Virginia and over the mountains, and we would go visit these wonderful, sweet people all over the state. And sometimes we were so far away from home that we couldn't go back home and then come back for evening services. And so our sort of duty was to go and to sit with some people in the afternoon. And you know what a lot of people do on Sunday afternoons is that they eat their dinner and then they take a nap. And a lot of times, my wife and I would be there and we would be sitting on someone's couch and these two people would go take a nap and they would say, make yourself at home, which is a nice sentiment and a nice thought. But if you're not at home, it's never really as comfortable, is it? If you're not where you dwell, where your comfort is, it's never the same. So for David to say, I want to live in comfort and in peace in the presence of God. I want to be there in his temple, to live in His house. So if you think about your home is the place of comfort where you can take your shoes off, you can put your feet on the coffee table, you can sit in your chair, right? I have a chair at my house. I sit in my chair. You can do those kinds of things where you really find comfort. It's where you can release after a long day's work and you can kick back and find rest. If you get up in the middle of the night, you don't have to turn the lights on to walk around your house because you know it. You know where the chairs are. You know where the tables are. You know how to walk around. You don't need directions to the restroom. You don't need directions to how to get to the kitchen because you know it, because it's your home, because you dwell there. And that's the idea here. David says, I want one thing. I want to dwell in the Lord's presence. I want to be there. I don't want to be anywhere else. I just want to be there. Not a weekend summer getaway, not a place to come visit, but I want to be at home with God. It reminds me of the beautiful statement that Jesus made when He was talking to His disciples in the end, and sort of that last discourse before He goes to the garden, in which He's able to say, if anyone loves me, he'll keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him, and we will make our home with him. Think about that beautiful sentiment that Jesus says, no, you follow us, you do what we ask, and we will come to you, and we will build a home with you. It's a beautiful idea. David says, I want one thing, and I want to dwell in the house of the Lord. Let me give you one more thing, Psalm 27. Let's look in the last verses 9 through 14 to the end of the chapter, where David tells us, I think that the Lord offers perspective. The Lord offers perspective. Listen to what David's dealing with a lot here. But he has something that's going to be the overarching theme. It's going to be his lens through which he can look at the rest of these situations, where he says things like, don't hide your face from me, God. Don't turn me away in your anger. You've been my help, and don't leave me, don't forsake me. And he says things that he's dealing with, like in verse 10, my father and my mother forsake me. And then verse 11, right, he needs to have a smooth path because of his enemies. Verse 12, he talks about his adversaries that are rising against him. False witnesses are coming out to say evil things against him. They're breathing out violence, he says. All these situations that David is dealing with. And he says there's one thing that it's going to give me perspective, and then helps me to see all of these things in a new way and in a healthy way. David would say in verse 8, when you said, seek my face, David says, my heart said to you, your face, Lord, I will seek. I want to seek after you, and it's going to help shape the way I view all of these things. He would say, don't leave me, God. There are enemies coming. I want you to be with me. If my mother, and my father forsake me, I know that you will be with me. And I have enemies coming, but that's okay because I know that you are there. I know that it helps me to see life through the lens of trust in you. And then he gets to this beautiful statement in verse 13, in which probably we've all can sympathize. David says, I would have lost heart. In other words, there is so much going on. So many things weighing on my shoulders. I would have lost heart. I would have given up. Have you ever been in that situation? Of course you have. I have. Where there's just too much going on. There are too many things pressing in against us. And we're having to say, I'm ready to throw in the towel. I'm done. I'm ready to give up. I can't do this anymore. And David says, I would have done that. I would have been in that situation. I would have lost heart and given up completely. But, he said, I would have lost heart unless I believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. He's confident that if he keeps that as the lens through which he sees life, all those other circumstances are just that. They're circumstances. They're challenges. They're bumps in the road. They're things, difficult as they might be, they are just things through which we must go. And David says, I would have given up, but I know that the goodness of the Lord is ahead of me. It's something I can focus on. It's something I can look at. I know that I can trust in him because he is in control. And so he's able to, at the end of this, be able to say, therefore, wait on the Lord. Wait on him. Allow him to have his time. Allow him to work in his ways that we don't understand always. But wait on the Lord. Such a challenge. But wait on the Lord, he says, be of good courage. He recognizes that that's not an easy thing. It's going to take courage to be able to endure and trust that He is in control. Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and His promise, He will strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. He gives us perspective through which we might see all the circumstances of our lives. So David presents to us the Lord's protection. He helps us to be able to see and think about the Lord's presence. And he gives us the Lord offers perspective and helps us to be able to see life. Psalm 27 is so beautiful, and there's so many ways to read it. This is the one that is always giving me the most meaning. It's always been the one that has picked me up when I've been in the situation where David has been. I hope that you can think about how the Lord protects you. I hope that you can think about your desire to live in His presence always, because He's always here. And I hope that we can find, even though in these difficult times, that we'll be able to say, I believe that out ahead of me, I can see the goodness of God. And I know that He is present and that He's working. Maybe some things for you to think about. Thank you for listening tonight. God bless you.